The night was cold and the streets of Los Angeles were quiet but not empty, because hidden between the shadows of buildings and glowing street lamps was a small figure sitting on the curb, a boy, maybe 12 years old, his clothes torn, his shoes worn out, his face tired yet determined. He was holding a thick physics book, its pages wrinkled, its cover bent, but he was reading it like it was the most important thing in the world. Keanu Reeves had just finished a long day on set, his black jacket wrapped tightly around him as he walked alone. He loved these late walks because they gave him peace. Away from the cameras and the noise, but on this night something caught his eye. He slowed his steps, his gaze falling on the boy under the dim light of a broken street lamp. Keanu paused because this was not the image one usually saw. A homeless boy with no blanket, no food in sight, lost in a world of science. The boy's lips moved as if whispering the words to himself, his fingers tracing the lines on the page. His eyes shining despite the darkness, curiosity tugged at Keanu's heart. He had seen pain before. He had lived through his own losses, but this was different. This was not just survival. This was hunger of another kind, hunger for knowledge. He walked closer, careful not to startle the boy. "Hey," Keanu said softly, his voice calm, kind. The boy flinched at first, clutching the book to his chest as if afraid someone might take it away. "It's okay," Keanu added, lowering himself to sit on the curb beside him. "What are you reading?" The boy hesitated, his voice small. "Physics, sir. It's about motion and energy. I borrowed it from the library weeks ago. I can't let it go." His eyes were wide, but beneath them were shadows of sleepless nights. Keanu smiled faintly. "Physics, huh? That's not easy reading?" The boy shook his head. "It's hard, but it makes me feel like the world makes sense. Like even when my life doesn't, there's a way everything connects, gravity, energy, light, it all has rules." His words carried weight far beyond his age. Keanu felt something stir inside him, a mixture of respect and sadness. This boy had nothing, yet he was clinging to the power of knowledge like it was his last lifeline. "What's your name?" Keanu asked. The boy looked down. "Daniel," he whispered. "Daniel Miller." Keanu nodded. "Nice to meet you, Daniel. My name's Keanu." The boy looked up suddenly, his eyes widening. You're Keanu Reeves," he stammered, almost dropping the book. Keanu chuckled softly. "Yeah, but tonight I'm just a guy walking home." Daniel blinked, unsure whether to smile or keep his guard up. There was silence for a moment, broken only by the distant sound of a car horn. Then Keanu asked gently, "Where's home, Daniel?" The boy's lips trembled. He looked away. "I don't have one. Not anymore, my mom. She passed away last year and my dad left before that. I've been on my own." His voice cracked, but he quickly wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "I don't like to talk about it." Keanu's chest tightened. He knew the sting of loss, too. Well, he had buried loved ones, he had walked through grief. He recognized the quiet strength in this boy who refused to cry. Instead of pity, Keanu offered what the boy valued most: respect. "That must be hard, but you're still here, and you're still reading. That says something about who you are." Daniel's head turned, surprised by the words. No one usually spoke to him like that. Most people walked past, others threw him cold glances. The boy whispered, "I want to learn. I want to be a scientist one day, maybe an astronaut. I want to prove that even someone like me can matter." Keanu's eyes softened. "Daniel, you already matter." The boy stared at him, the words sinking deeper than any meal could, deeper than any blanket could warm. Because it was recognition, Keanu noticed the boy's hands shaking slightly from the cold. Without a second thought, he shrugged off his jacket and wrapped it around Daniel's shoulders. The boy gasped, "No, sir, I can't take this." But Keanu gently insisted, "It's just a jacket. You need it more than I do, for the first time." Daniel smiled faintly, shyly. "Thank you." But in that moment, Keanu felt something else rising inside him. A quiet decision. This was not going to be one of those nights where he walked away. This was not going to be another story of a boy lost in the streets. Tonight was going to be different. because Keanu Reeves had just spotted a homeless boy reading physics books, and in that moment he knew he was about to change his life. The next evening, Keanu could not stop thinking about Daniel. All day on set, his mind kept going back to the boy on the curb, clutching that worn physics book like treasure. He thought about the boy's thin frame, the cold night air, the determination in his eyes, and the way he said, "I want to be a scientist one day." Those words echoed inside him when filming wrapped. Keanu walked the same street again, almost hoping to see him. And there he was, sitting under the same flickering street lamp, the book still in his lap, his lips moving silently as he tried to solve a problem on the page. Keanu approached slowly, not to startle him. "Hey, Daniel," he said softly. The boy's head lifted, his eyes widened with recognition, and then a small smile crossed his face. "You came back," he whispered, his voice carrying both surprise and relief. Keanu sat beside him again. "Of course I did. I wanted to check on you." The boy clutched the book tighter. "I'm okay, I'm just reading." But his stomach growled loudly, betraying him. His cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Keanu noticed and gently asked, "When was the last time you ate?" Daniel shrugged, looking away. "Yesterday morning, maybe." Keanu didn't say anything for a moment. He simply stood and extended his hand. "Come on, let's get some food." Daniel hesitated, his pride and fear battling inside him. But Keanu's expression was calm, respectful, not pitying. "I'm not offering charity, Daniel. I'm offering dinner. Will you join me?" After a long pause, the boy nodded slowly and slipped his small hand into Keanu's. Together they walked down the street to a small diner that stayed open late. The warm glow of the lights greeted them, and the smell of coffee and fresh bread filled the air. They sat at a booth in the corner, and the waitress smiled warmly. "What can I get you two?" Keanu looked at Daniel. "Order whatever you like." Daniel's eyes darted nervously to the menu, overwhelmed. Finally he whispered, "A burger, please, and maybe fries." His voice shook as if afraid he was asking for too much. Keanu nodded. "And a hot chocolate for him, too," he added with a smile. When the food arrived, Daniel's hands trembled as he reached for the burger. He took a small bite at first, then a larger one, his hunger overcoming his hesitation. Keanu sat quietly, watching with gentle eyes, giving the boy space to eat without pressure. After a while, Daniel slowed down, sipping his hot chocolate carefully, the warmth returning color to his cheeks. He whispered, "Thank you, sir. No one has done this for me in a long time." Keanu leaned forward. "Daniel, you don't have to call me sir. Just Keanu." The boy nodded shyly. "Thank you, Keanu," he said softly. There was silence for a moment before Keanu asked, "Tell me, why physics of all things?" Daniel's eyes lit up instantly, his whole body changing. "Because it explains everything, motion, time, even the stars. When I read, I feel like I'm not stuck here on the streets. I feel like I'm flying, like I belong somewhere bigger." Keanu felt a lump in his throat. The boy's dream was so pure, so powerful, but the world had given him nothing to stand on. "And what do you want to do with all this knowledge?" Keanu asked gently. Daniel hesitated, then whispered, "I want to build something that helps people. Maybe machines, maybe ships that can go to space. I don't know yet, but I want to change lives." He looked down at his hands. "I just don't know if I'll get the chance." Keanu reached across the table, placing a hand on the book Daniel had carried everywhere. "You already started. You haven't given up. That's your chance." Daniel looked up, and for the first time his eyes held something more than hunger or exhaustion. They held hope. After dinner, they stepped back into the night. Keanu walked him toward the spot where he had been staying. Near an abandoned building, Daniel tried to smile. "This is home for now," he said, his voice light, but the truth heavy beneath it. Keanu's heart tightened. He wanted to take him away from this, but he also knew trust had to be built slowly, so instead he said, "I'll see you tomorrow, same place." Daniel blinked. "You really mean that?" Keanu smiled. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't." As he walked away, Keanu thought deeply. He knew this wasn't going to be just a meeting on the street anymore. This was the start of something bigger, something that could change both of their lives. And for Daniel, sitting there hugging his book, one thought repeated in his mind. Maybe he was not invisible anymore. Maybe, just maybe, someone saw him. The following day, Keanu found himself distracted again. No matter how many scenes he filmed, no matter how many people he spoke to, his mind always went back to Daniel, the boy with the wrinkled physics book and the quiet but burning dream. He knew he couldn't let this fade like a passing encounter. As soon as filming wrapped, Keanu made his way back to the familiar street, the broken lamp still flickering weakly above the curb. And there was Daniel, sitting cross-legged with the book balanced on his knees, scribbling notes on scraps of paper he had found. "Hey, genius," Keanu called gently. Daniel looked up, startled for a moment, then broke into a shy grin. "You came again," he said, his voice carrying surprise but also warmth, as if part of him had already expected it. Keanu sat down beside him. "Of course I said I would." He noticed Daniel's notes, the messy handwriting, the little equations half finished. "What are you working on?" Daniel hesitated, embarrassed. "I'm trying to understand Newton's laws, but I don't have enough paper, so I write small. Sometimes I erase and write again." His voice was soft, almost apologetic, as if ashamed of having so little. Keanu studied the thin scraps of paper, the broken pencil barely holding together. Something stirred inside him, a mix of anger at the unfairness and admiration at the boy's persistence. "You know what? I think we can fix that," Keanu said, standing up. "Come with me." Daniel froze, nervous. "Where are we going?" Keanu smiled. "To get you something better than scraps." They walked together down the street until they reached a small bookstore that also sold school supplies. When they stepped inside, the smell of paper and ink filled the air. Daniel's eyes widened like he had entered another world. Keanu led him to the shelves stacked with notebooks and pencils. "Pick what you need," he said. Daniel blinked in disbelief. "I can't. They'll kick me out if I touch anything." His voice shook, but Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "Not today, Daniel. Today you choose." Slowly, Daniel reached out and picked a simple notebook, then another, then a set of pencils, his hands trembling. "Is this too much?" he whispered, his voice filled with guilt. Keanu shook his head. "No, it's not enough, but it's a start." When they reached the counter, the cashier glanced at the boy's clothes, then at Keanu, her brows furrowed in confusion. But Keanu simply paid, his tone calm and polite, treating Daniel like he mattered. Because he did. Outside, Daniel clutched the bag to his chest, his voice breaking. "No one has ever done this for me, not once." Keanu looked at him and said gently, "Sometimes people just need someone to believe in them, and I believe in you, Daniel." The boy's eyes watered, but he quickly blinked them away. "I'll study harder. I'll make this worth it," he promised. "You don't have to prove anything to me," Keanu replied softly. "Just keep being who you are. That's enough." They spent the evening in a nearby park, Keanu sitting beside him on a bench while Daniel eagerly opened his new notebook, writing down formulas, sketching diagrams, his excitement like a flame that had finally been given oxygen. As the sky turned dark, Keanu asked, "Daniel, what's the hardest part about all this?" Daniel paused, his pencil stilling. "The hardest part isn't hunger or cold. I can survive those. The hardest part is when people look at me and see nothing. When they pass by like I'm invisible, like I don't belong anywhere." His voice was steady, but beneath it was pain carved deep into his young soul. Keanu listened carefully, then said, "You are not invisible to me, Daniel, and you'll never be invisible again. Not if I can help it." Those words struck something inside the boy, a quiet promise that gave him strength. And as he wrote his final line of the night, he whispered, "Maybe my life can really change." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "It will, Daniel. It will." Neither of them knew just how soon everything was about to shift, and how their bond would be tested by challenges they couldn't yet see. But for the first time in years, Daniel fell asleep that night, believing tomorrow might bring something better. The next week, Keanu kept his promise and met Daniel every evening. Sometimes they ate together at the diner. Sometimes they sat on the park bench under the fading sun while Daniel filled pages with formulas and sketches. For the first time in a long while, the boy had a rhythm to his days, a sense of direction, but one evening when Keanu arrived at the street, he noticed something was wrong. Daniel was not in his usual spot. His book was not open under the lamp. Instead, a group of older boys stood there laughing cruelly, one of them holding Daniel's physics book in his hand. Keanu's chest tightened. He quickened his steps. "Hey!" he called firmly, his voice carrying weight. The boys turned and froze when they saw him, their laughter cut short. Keanu's presence was calm but powerful, his eyes sharp. "Give that back," he said, pointing at the book. The tallest boy hesitated, then scoffed. "It's just trash. Some nerd kid pretending to be smart." But his voice wavered under Keanu's steady gaze. Daniel was on the ground nearby, clutching his ribs, his face pale. When he saw Keanu, his eyes filled with relief and shame. "They took my book," he whispered. Keanu stepped closer, his tone even but firm. "It's not trash, it's his dream, and you don't touch someone else's dream." He held out his hand. The boy muttered something but shoved the book into his palm before retreating with the others. When they left, Keanu knelt beside Daniel, helping him sit up gently. "Are you okay?" he asked. Daniel winced but nodded. "I'm fine. I've been through worse," he whispered, but his trembling voice betrayed the pain inside. Keanu placed the book back into Daniel's hands. "This belongs to you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Daniel hugged the book tightly, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Why do they hate me for wanting to learn?" he asked, his voice breaking. Keanu's heart ached. He brushed a hand over the boy's hair like a father would. "They don't hate you, Daniel. They fear what they don't understand. They see your strength and it reminds them of their own weakness, but you must never let their cruelty decide your worth." That night, Keanu took Daniel to a small clinic nearby to make sure he was not badly hurt. When the doctor asked if he was the boy's guardian, Keanu paused, then said quietly, "Yes, I'm looking after him." The words felt heavy, but they also felt right. Afterward, as they walked back, Daniel's voice was soft, almost fragile. "Why are you helping me? You could just walk away." Like everyone else, Keanu stopped and turned to him, his gaze steady. "Because once I needed someone too, and not everyone walked away. Kindness saved me. Now I'm passing it on." Daniel looked down, his lips trembling. "Do you think I can really change my life, or is it just a dream?" Keanu knelt to his level. "Daniel, dreams are the first step to change. You already took it. Now we take the next step together." That night, Keanu did something different. Instead of leaving him on the cold street, he booked a small room in a safe motel nearby, placing the key in Daniel's hand. "You need a real bed just for tonight." Daniel hesitated, overwhelmed. "What? If they don't let me in, I look like—" Keanu cut him off softly. "You look like someone who deserves rest. That's all." The boy's tears came freely then. He hugged the book to his chest and whispered, "Thank you, Keanu. I'll never forget this." And as Keanu walked away, he realized it was no longer just about helping a boy on the street. It was about protecting a spark that could light the world. But sparks attract both warmth and danger, and he knew greater challenges were waiting. The following days changed everything for Daniel. He was no longer just a boy hiding under a broken street lamp. Now he had notebooks, pencils, and a warm bed when Keanu insisted he stay in the motel. Every evening he waited eagerly for Keanu, and together they studied, talked, and dreamed. But life outside did not stay quiet. Word began to spread about a famous actor spending time with a homeless boy. One evening, when Keanu and Daniel walked out of the diner, a man with a camera jumped in front of them, snapping pictures. "Mr. Reeves, who's the kid? Is this your son?" he shouted, the flash startling Daniel. Keanu placed an arm protectively in front of him. "No pictures, please." His voice calm but firm, the photographer smirked. "The world will want to know why Hollywood's Keanu Reeves is walking with a street kid." Then he vanished into the night. Daniel's face turned pale. "I don't want to cause you trouble," he whispered, fear in his eyes. Keanu crouched down, meeting his gaze. "You're not trouble, Daniel. Don't ever think that. You're my friend and I stand with my friends." But the next day, headlines appeared online. Gossip sites speculating about the mysterious boy. Seen with Keanu. Some kind voices praised his kindness, but others mocked. Twisting the story, Daniel saw one of the headlines on a torn newspaper outside a shop and his hands shook. "They're laughing at you because of me," he whispered. Keanu took the paper gently from him and tossed it aside. "Let them laugh, Daniel. I don't care what they say. What matters is what's true, and the truth is you're worth standing beside." Still, the pressure grew. One evening, child services showed up at the motel. They asked questions about Daniel, about where his parents were, about whether he was safe. Daniel panicked, clutching his physics book like a shield. "Please don't take me away," he begged. The officer softened but explained, "We have to make sure he has a safe home, Mr. Reeves. He can't stay in a motel forever." Keanu nodded slowly, his mind racing. He knew they were right, but he also knew Daniel's greatest fear was losing the little stability he had just found. When the officers left, promising to return, Daniel turned to Keanu, his eyes wet. "They'll send me to some place. They'll forget about me. I'll never see you again." His voice cracked. Keanu knelt down and put both hands on his shoulders, steady and warm. "Daniel, listen to me. I won't let that happen. You're not alone anymore. I'll fight for you." For the first time, Daniel collapsed into his arms, sobbing against his chest. All the walls he had built around his heart crumbled. Keanu held him close, whispering, "You're safe with me, I promise." That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. He sat awake in his apartment, thinking about his next move. This was bigger than dinners and notebooks now. This was about giving Daniel a real future. But the path ahead would not be easy. It would demand sacrifice, patience, and strength. The next morning, Keanu walked into a law office, determined. "I need help," he said to the attorney. "I want to become Daniel's legal guardian." The lawyer raised a brow. "This won't be simple, Mr. Reeves. There will be questions, investigations, but if you're serious, it can be done." Keanu nodded firmly. "I'm serious more than I've ever been." And so began a new battle, not against street bullies or cold nights, but against systems and doubts, against people who believed. A boy like Daniel did not deserve a second chance. But Keanu Reeves had already made his choice. He was not going to walk away. The days that followed were filled with challenges, court hearings, and endless questions. Officials wanted to know why a Hollywood star like Keanu Reeves would take responsibility for a homeless boy. Some doubted his intentions. Others thought it was just charity for show, but every time they asked, Keanu gave the same steady answer. Because he deserves a chance, because he matters. Daniel was terrified at first, sitting in those offices surrounded by strangers in suits, holding his physics book tightly to his chest as if it could protect him. He whispered to Keanu, "They'll never let me stay with you. I don't belong anywhere." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice calm but powerful. "You belong, Daniel, and I will prove it." The hearings dragged on for weeks, but Keanu never missed a single one. Sometimes after long days on set, he would rush across the city just to sit beside Daniel in the waiting room, whispering encouragements, reminding him that he was not invisible anymore. Then, one morning, the judge finally gave the decision. "We grant guardianship to Mr. Reeves under the condition that he ensures the boy's education and well-being." Daniel's eyes filled with tears, his small hand gripping Keanu's tightly. "Does this mean I can stay with you?" he whispered. The judge smiled softly. "Yes, it does." Daniel broke into sobs of relief. Keanu hugged him close, whispering, "You're home now, Daniel. You'll never be alone again." Life changed after that. Daniel moved into Keanu's quiet house, no longer sleeping under broken lamps or in cold motel rooms. He had his own bed, his own desk stacked with notebooks, and shelves slowly filling with books. His favorite place became the study where he and Keanu would sit for hours, Daniel scribbling equations while Keanu read beside him. But Keanu did more than just give him a roof. He gave him respect. He signed him up for school, met with teachers, and encouraged him every step of the way. Daniel struggled at first. Years on the streets had made it hard to keep up. But whenever he wanted to give up, Keanu reminded him, "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying." Months turned into years. Daniel grew stronger, sharper, his grades rising, his curiosity never fading. He began to enter science fairs, building small models, presenting his ideas with trembling hands but steady courage. And every time he looked into the audience, there was Keanu, smiling proudly, clapping louder than anyone. One night, after a long day of studying, Daniel sat on the porch steps beside Keanu, looking up at the stars. "Do you think one day I can really make it? Maybe even work for NASA?" he asked quietly, his voice still, carrying that fragile hope. Keanu looked at him, his face lit by the silver glow of the night sky. "Daniel, you already made it. You survived when the world wanted you invisible. You believed when no one believed in you, and one day, yes, you'll reach the stars. But no matter where you go, remember this. You changed my life too." Daniel's eyes filled. He leaned against Keanu's arm, whispering, "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." Years later, when Daniel walked across the stage to receive his scholarship in physics, the crowd erupted in applause. But his eyes searched for only one face, and there he was, Keanu Reeves, clapping, tears in his eyes, knowing that the boy who once read physics under a broken street lamp was now stepping into the future he had always dreamed of. And as Daniel held up his certificate, his voice steady and proud, he said, "I am proof that one act of kindness can change a life forever." Keanu stood tall, his heart full because he knew it was true. It had all begun the night he spotted a homeless boy reading physics books. And what he did next didn't just change that boy's life. It changed his own.